Celtics Stuff Live.
Welcome to Celtics Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics. I'm your host, Justin Poulin. Joining me, John Duke, as always. And John, the Celtics absolutely stink right now. And I don't even want to WEEI this. I'm just saying they flat out stink, dude. It's miserable. A 1-3 road trip. We had hoped that this would be a road trip that would help them kind of come together and heal. You and I both predicted a 2-2 record, so we weren't thinking they were going to all of a sudden mesh and go on this road trip and become or come back home and be all-stars that are all back into their form and playing together marvelously. We thought 500, but it could be the trip that helps the team get to where they need to be chemistry-wise. And I just don't see that happened at all. I think they're still on a downward spiral.
Look, I think that there were some positives to take out of the trip. I thought the Utah game, the end of the Phoenix game, I thought the offense looked pretty good in the Utah game. I thought the second half of the Phoenix game, the offense looked pretty good. The defense was pretty good in the second half of the Portland game. You know, it's just like fits and starts. Nothing really cohesive. All of it really kind of jumbled mess. I think there's a lot of calls for mixing up the starting lineups and the rotations, and I think all of that is very smart. But there's been a lot of pushback. Steve Bulpett, Jay King, they're all like, no, it's all going to work itself out. I'm seeing a team that just doesn't really trust itself right now, doesn't know how to work together. And like, we talked before the show, is there a young guy versus old guy thing going on? It's just tough. It's really hard sledding. And the one thing that I was comparing it to is this is like watching the 2010 Celtics, where they were good. They're supposed to be good. And you and I did a lot of shows talking about some pretty bad basketball for a good part of that season until they flipped the switch in the playoffs. God help us. Let's hope they flip the switch sooner than that. But this is tough, a tough watch right now.
Yeah, it's actually annoying to watch. I mean, I'm just going to be straight up. I put that out on Twitter and I meant it, and I think I said it, 3 or 4 days ago. I said the last 10 days, this team has been just flat out annoying to watch play. And a lot of it's just the way they're digging those holes. Remember, that was where they were kind of coming from in the early Isaiah Thomas days. They dig these big holes, then they climb out of them, and then they'd finish in the fourth quarter in amazing fashion. And, they did do that against Phoenix, but I mean, of all teams, Phoenix they had to dig out. And even then, I fell asleep with about 30 seconds left, not thinking they even had a shot. And then I woke back up 5 minutes later and had to pull it back up and watch it and say, wait a second, what? They won? And, it was very, very crazy the way they even pulled out that win. They very easily could have been 0-4 on this road trip. This is not the team we expected this season. I agree. They're just playing disjointed. I do also agree with Steve Bulpett that this will work itself out. I'm not sure we need to get crazy with shaking up the starting lineup, although you and I discussed the Marcus Smart, maybe Marcus Morris kind of switching in. I think that might send a message to some degree. I think Hayward would actually, and we talked about that, do better on that second unit, the ball handling. They could suffer Marcus Smart going into the starting lineup. He's made some really great defensive plays. He also hit some big 3-pointers. I mean, Marcus, I won't say has been all world, but Marcus has been Marcus with the ability to hit a 3. Why not work him into that starting lineup? Get him, and really we need to get, I think, much more up-tempo. I think it would help the offense get into a groove, more shots. I know that they are taking a lot of shots and missing a lot of especially 3-pointers this past week, but I'd like to just see him get more up-tempo. Marcus Smart creating turnovers, pushing it out on the break and transition. I think that would help a ton, to be honest with you, and I think a lot of these guys would get back in the groove. We also saw 3 teams, especially, with some pretty dominant big men in the middle. And we had talked before the season about that starting lineup, and you had said, I feel like Aaron Baines needs to be in the starting lineup, especially against those type of teams. But I don't see where that was really a difference maker either. He stopped hitting those 3-pointers that he was really knocking down, through the first couple of weeks of the year. But I really don't see where that's made a difference. I'm almost at a point where I'd be willing to accept a trade, but the trade would have to be a big one. It doesn't have to necessarily be Towns or Davis, but it's got to be a fairly decent sized young big man with some passing ability and would have to have some defense. I mean, look at what Rudy Gobert did to this defense, just going up and how many alley-oops did he have in that game? Ridiculous.
Well, so let's talk about Horford, because I think this has been a bad week for Al Horford. And really you can go back, the road trip really does include the Indiana game. So really they're 1-5, right? Or 1-4, I guess, counting the Indiana game, which is another one they should have won. I mean, they were close in a number of these. So, it's not like they got their doors blown off. They were in all of them. They only pulled one off. And, look, Portland's good. Utah, it was a lot better than they have been earlier in the season. Indiana is good. But Phoenix, not so hot, So there's a little bit there, but the thing that I'm interested in is I think Horford's gassed, and you saw it where he didn't play the end of the Phoenix game. He clearly did not have his legs playing against Gobert, somebody who's actually made look pretty silly in the past. And I think he looks just completely, I don't know, gaunt, but he looked gassed. He doesn't have the same energy and same pep. And I think that has a lot to do with him playing the 5. I think that he needs to be on the 4 to start the games. And I think it really talks about the overall outlook of trying to run that small lineup.
Now you're working that Baines argument back in here. That was subtle and smooth the way you did that. You're going to say it's not about the matchups anymore. You're going to say it's all about Al Horford running out of gas in the tank. I think
it's evidence. I think it's evidence.
I think Tommy needs to tell him he's out of shape.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, look, they're playing at high altitude too. So Denver, Utah, even Phoenix. I mean, you're dealing with, it's a pretty taxing, trip, in particular where he didn't have Tice for all but the Portland game. That's tough. That's a lot to put on him, but I really think it's not working right now, right? It's the starting lineup is just not working. Those guys are, they're not at odds with each other, but it's clearly they just don't know how to fit next to each other. The question I have is, you're right, bring in Marcus, bring in Baines. I don't want to touch Marcus Morris. I want to leave him on the bench, known as a reliable scorer there. Let's say you bring in Marcus and Baines. Who are the two you sit? I'd say Hayward.
Hayward's Hayward's the easy choice. Well, I would go with Brown, specifically because if you're going to let Hayward do the ball handling, I'd like to see him get up and down the floor a little bit. Brown plays the defense. And I actually think Brown has actually started to pull it together a little bit. I know, yeah, he really has tightened it up a little bit, playing within himself. That's happened in the past. We've watched him have to kind of figure that out, but he's hit some big 3-pointers. Let's face it. His clutch shooting from beyond the arc has been there in critical moments here and there already in this early season. I think that's good that he's knocking down. I mean, look at Tatum. Tatum's missed some big 3-pointers, in the waning minutes of the games, over the last several weeks. I'm not saying he hasn't had he's put up some big points. And I do like seeing him work that Euro step, but he is trying to get a little bit closer to the rim. A lot of the moves that we saw last year, he's bringing back out. I don't know where they went, but they really weren't there, through the first several weeks of the season. And now he's bringing some of that back, which is good. They do need to just find a way to get into the paint though. Regardless of what you say about Horford playing the 5, defensively, yes, he may be gassed, but offensively, they just can't get close. And they're missing all those mid-range shots. And they're really not confident with the 3. I mean, Kyrie is the only one that can get into the paint. It was the same thing with Isaiah Thomas. And if you just look at this team, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to get into the paint. Jaylen Brown, I get the handle isn't quite there for him to just go slashing with the ball in his hands. I still, for the love of God, cannot understand how they can't wind up running a play where he can't beat the defense, around the back door. Why? And that's why I say, let's see some up tempo. Let's give up a little bit on defense. Have a little fun, play a little. You might remember, not this last season, but the season before, they were like really good defensively, but they kind of hit a tough stretch, and it was kind of a similar start as this a couple years ago. And then their defense went to crap. They fell from like top 3 in the league down to 20th, but they were winning. And I think it had everything to do with attitude. They were having fun, and they did wind up getting the defense back in order by the time they hit the postseason. But I think that that's really what they need to do. I see a team that is not enjoying being, on the floor, not really necessarily enjoying being around each other. And I feel like, some of this could be solved with them just laxing up a little bit, having a little bit of fun, getting loose, and then going back and locking down the defense once they have some confidence.
And I think there have been times when offensively they look okay. Before the playoff, before they went on the road, I mean, Kyrie had a number of different, situations where he went off, and I thought that kind of helped people find a role a little bit. I think since then Tatum has been a little bit better. He was not good in Indiana, but I think there's a question of like direction of who's the ball's finding. Tatum had one shot in the game in the fourth quarter against, Portland. He had 27 points, scorching hot in the third quarter, and the ball only found him one time, a 3 that he missed. That's not good enough, and I'm not saying that that's indicative of what Brad's not doing, but the team's got to recognize that. They've got to recognize, okay, look, he's kind of got it going here. Kyrie had a couple instances where he missed some shots there in the closing minutes there against Portland. Again, they were down by so much early on. They have to crawl back. And maybe that's a function of today's NBA where just there's always going to be someone down big. But it just feels like it's always the Celtics that are the ones on the downside of that. That's just, to me, that speaks more to effort and speaks to whether or not those guys are getting together. And I think by having those slow starts, especially on the road, I think it points to that incongruity with that first unit and their inability to kind of establish something. And I think they need more energy. And I think a guy like Marcus Smart introduced into that group and moving Brown and Hayward to the second unit, I think that just makes it a little bit more balanced, perhaps. I wouldn't mess with their time in terms of how much they're able to play, but I think that would be very helpful. And it's also interesting to see Hayward today saying that he thinks that his minutes restriction is really limiting some of that chemistry building. What do you think about that? Do you think the minutes restriction is the issue for him? And is that maybe impacting his play overall?
All right. Well, first, just going to remind everybody to follow Celtics Stuff Live on Twitter at @CSL_tweet live. You can follow me at @CSL_Justin. John is at @CSL_Duke, and the entire CLNS Media Network is at CLNS Media. Facebook.com/CLNS fans. Download the CLNS Media app for iOS and Android. Simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace, and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/CLNS Media for high definition, full length locker room interviews, the Garden Report, the Roundtable, Celtic Stuff Live. And John, you asked a great question right before we hit that station identification, I guess we'll call it. You asked, is Hayward right in his assessment that the minutes restriction is what's throwing everything off of the chemistry of that first unit? And I think there could be some truth to that. I also think that they're very concerned that if they lift that minutes restriction, that he's going to end up hurting his ankle. So here's the question to you back, right? I think absolutely it is, but I also know he's dealing with soreness every day. So is it going to mess them up more having him on a minutes restriction or having him take the second night of a back-to-back off, et cetera, et cetera? And I guess part of the answer to that question is who on the bench unit can just sub in for Hayward and make it look fairly similar so that chemistry isn't totally disrupted the way they run, the offense and the way they play defense on his nights off. Because that's the question there. In my mind, it's he's going to need time off to heal. I actually like the idea of keeping his minutes up and taking the second night of a back-to-back off. If you did move somebody like Smart into the lineup and take Brown down, then you could just basically take Hayward out and put Brown back into the lineup maybe. The problem is there's nobody else on this team that plays the way that Hayward does. If you had Evan Turner, you could bring him in and call him, Gordon Hayward Light. And it was nice to see ET again the other night. Everybody having fun with him. Him talking about coming back and winning the championship. That was hilarious. Scal, thank you. And, but at the end, just looking at it, that's what I'm concerned about. Might still disrupt the chemistry. I think you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't until he's 100%. And maybe in that vein, you should play him the full minutes out on the floor because he's getting normal wear and tear on the ankle. And if he's got to take a night off here and there just to rest it up, maybe that's better overall for conditioning. I'm not a doctor. I'm a nurse. I'm not a doctor though, so I can't tell you which way to go with that. Are you more concerned about disrupting chemistry by taking games off or minutes restriction? Which one do you choose? Pick your poison.
Sophie's choice, right, of this thing. Which is the least objectionable result? It's tough because right now nothing's working, right? There's no chemistry at all. And I think part of maybe even why Al Horford has not really had a rest night since the start of the season, despite a really challenging schedule, is that Brad is trying to play as many of these guys together as much as he can to try to build that cohesion. And it's just, it hasn't manifested itself. So yeah, I think you're right. I think I would rather probably keep the minutes up and have the one outlier, I suppose, as that back-to-back, knowing there aren't many back-to-backs to speak of. And then kind of, try to maintain some semblance of normalcy. I guess the issue though is when are those minutes coming? And as we talked about him, I'm an advocate of letting Hayward run the second unit. Right now, Terry is really struggling to find his role. Morris is really lighting it up. Hayward, the one thing Hayward has really shined in, and I'd say in his time, thus far, a month into this recovery, is playmaking. So why not put him in a position, basically Smart's position, effectively, of going out there, playmaking, creating opportunities. He's going to be defending the other team's second unit, wing players. So he's not going to be going up against the Joe Ingles of the world to torch him.
Oh God, that was just ridiculous. That was so tough to take, John. The Joe Ingles torching, boy, that's just like taking the finger and sticking it in your throat and just gagging. It was just
it's almost
brutal.
As bad as their uniforms or that guy dancing next to the Celtics bench. Oh my goodness. What a horrific thing that was.
What a weird ass week this was. I mean, seriously, we're just going to call it weird ass because that's exactly what it was. And this team is going to come around, but it's just like, come on. Do us a favor, have a couple of good ones in there. Yeah. And even the Phoenix game, as much as that was, a nice comeback victory, I'm sorry, but I just didn't feel good about it. I was not excited at the end of that game, because that's a team you should beat. It's just a team you should beat, period, the end. Mm-hmm. And so, it was nice to get a win. It was nice to see a win. It was kind of exciting, but it's just like, it never even should have gotten to that point. Never. So,
I mean, all right. Go ahead. I was just going to say, Phoenix is far and away the worst team in the league. Their net rating, they're like twice as bad a net rating as the next worst Atlanta Hawks. I mean, they're so bad, and yet it was, just by a Kyrie, complete going nuts situation as he saved that. We haven't, and that doesn't even talk about the Jamal Murray game. I mean, how many times are we going to get torched? God, Calgon, take me away.
Calgon. That's a throwback. All right, Boston sports fans, do you want to get killer seats to see your favorite team just for the price of a beer or a large pizza? I bet you're tired of paying all of the inflated markups from brokers, last-minute convenience charges, just to end up paying courtside prices for nosebleed seats. Go to onein100.co. That's ONEIN100.co. Feeling lucky? Try it out right now. There's no other place online that's doing online raffles to win tickets for events. It's a totally new way to score tickets to your favorite events and a new way to score Boston Celtics tickets. The cost to get these tickets with 1in100 is potentially a small fraction of the actual ticket price. Get a pair of tickets for less than a cost of a beer. Your first raffle ticket is free after you sign up, and the experience of using 1 in 100 is extremely fun and exciting, all the way from picking your lucky number to the feeling of potentially scoring premium tickets. Feeling lucky? Try it. 1in100.co. That's ONEIN100.co. And Robinhood, an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission free. Did you hear that? Commission free. This intimidating way for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with true confidence. I have friends that have been encouraging me to invest in cryptocurrencies, and now I finally done it with Robinhood's easy to use app. Other brokerages charge up to $10 for every trade, but Robinhood doesn't charge. That's right. No commission fees. Trade stocks and keep all of your profits. Learn how to invest as you build your portfolio and discover new stocks and track favorite companies with a personalized news feed. Custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help you build your portfolio. Sign up at celticstuff.robinhood.com. That's celticstuff.robinhood.com. All right, we got to get to Jimmy Butler. We've been ignoring Jimmy Butler for the first half of the show. Oh. And before we got started, we do our little topic review. What are we going to talk about? Hey, we're going to be in the pooper. We're not going to be really happy and optimistic. We're the green colored glasses kind of guys, and it's just not going to be that way on the show, and they stink and blah, blah, blah. And then, we realized very quickly that you and I stood on the opposite side of the fence on a couple of the main topics for the show. One was whether or not Baines in the starting lineup was really going to be, the fix. All right, well, you think so. Oi. And then the other topic was Jimmy Butler. And I'm going to tell you, the Eastern Conference is way better at this point in the game anyway than we thought. And it just got a whole lot better for Philly. I think Jimmy Butler is just the player they needed to take some attention off of Embiid and to give Ben Simmons a true, partner to pass to. I really feel like we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. And you already look, what's Toronto, 12-2? I mean, they're smoking it right now. And don't think that Milwaukee isn't like seriously on the rise. They're right behind Toronto, and they're like an upper crust team right now, the way they're playing. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm telling you right now, Jimmy Butler, chip on his shoulder, Jay Crowder's best buddy from back in the college days, a couple of second round picks chumming it up, hitting the court with a vengeance. Not to mention Jay Crowder did exact his vengeance on the Celtics with a key clutch 3. So don't think that isn't there. And so here we are. Jimmy Butler is now a 76er. That was a trade we all thought was going to happen. And they got him for a sack of potatoes. Holy moly, they didn't give up crap. A second round pick, and I get it. Dario, great player, for the most part, coming off the bench and hit maybe one of their better outside shooters. So they definitely are going to miss that. Jimmy's not exactly an all-world 3-point shooter, right? That was one of the criticisms. So the clogging of the middle is still a potential concern for the 76ers. But at the end of the day, this guy's a scorer, and he's a clutch scorer, and he can attack the rim. I think it makes a big difference for Philly having a go-to guy like this, especially a veteran player. He's only, 29? I'm telling you right now, they're about to climb the standings. And the Celtics are hanging around right now with the likes of the Detroit Pistons in the standings. Barf. This is ridiculous. Philly's going to put on a strong push. I'm telling you right now, John.
So that was a very convincing impression of all the people who live around you in the Pennsylvania area. So good job by you.
Has nothing to do with that. I'm uninfluenced.
I've been on the road.
They have infected your brain. Nope. I've been on the road since the trade. I haven't even been in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Whatever. It's in there clearly, ladies and gentlemen, Celtics Stuff Live listeners. We've lost Justin. So it's pretty soon it's Philly Stuff Live, Sixers Stuff Live. And, I'm going to be replaced by some guy in West Philadelphia, born and raised, on a playground. He spent most of his days. Anyway, look, Jimmy Butler is a great player. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. I'm not gonna say he's not a great player, that he won't impact Philly. He clearly is gonna be a huge influence for the Philadelphia 76ers in trying to get them, higher up in the standings. I think they're going to win a lot more games probably in the regular season than I would have anticipated. You may remember we talked about where they were going to be. It was a 4th, 5th thing with me and Indiana. I think clearly they're now in the top 4 without question. Here's the problem though. Can't shoot. He's a 37.8% 3-point shooter. That's the best shooting percentage he's had in the league. That's what he's put up this year. The guy is not going to space the floor, right? You're still going to do what you've always been doing in terms of how you defend Ben Simmons and how you defend Joel Embiid. Nothing changes playing against Jimmy Butler. He's not going to change the geometry of the floor in a meaningful way. So you really still have.
Do you move Redick
problem
into the starting lineup for that reason?
Well, I think you could, but I think even
right
then,
because you got Simmons that's leading the offense, right?
Yeah,
I agree. It's one guy, but Jimmy can still take his. I mean,
you can play off of Jimmy too a bit. So it's like, look, Saric. I'm not saying Saric and Covington are Larry Bird and Dale Ellis, but they were guys who helped spread the floor quite a bit for that Philly team, and now they're even thinner. And you're maybe looking more at Markelle Fultz to do more off the bench. I don't know if you saw his free throw last night, but oh my goodness. I've seen dogs vomiting with more grace than what that shot looked like. It was awful. I feel bad for the guy. I don't say it to rip on him. I'm just saying, like, when you've got more hitches in your shot than Charles Barkley has when he's on the 3rd fairway there, that's a problem. And he's going to be asked to do more. And how do you think Jimmy Butler is going to do in terms of leadership and building camaraderie? I mean, man, the guy has burned his way out of Chicago, out of Minnesota. Now he's going into the process, and that's a volatile situation that nobody's really talking about. I think it was the right move for Philly. They really didn't have many other opportunities to make that type of deal. I think it was the right move, but they missed an opportunity by going after a guy like Kawhi Leonard. I think Kawhi Leonard would have been lock, stock, that's it. That would have shut the whole thing down. Jimmy Butler doesn't get me as excited. And like you said, 29's good. I
agree with that. No. You're right about Kawhi being obviously, a much level up over Jimmy Butler, especially when you look what he's done to Toronto. I mean, really, that's a big step up for that team, for a guy that barely has had a chance to get, acclimated and build that chemistry. And, and we know that the 3-point shooting was really kind of a non-issue for DeRozan last year. He really, not a non-issue, but he picked it up substantially, much better.
Totally.
And look at Kawhi. He didn't even play last year. So the fact that he's basically healthy is kind of curious, and playing, really, that's a whole other topic for maybe Toronto Stuff Live or Raptors Stuff Live. But either way, really, really bizarre.
Starters.
That he's just, the starters. For him to come out like this, be doing that, and for them to take such a leap up, obviously it would have done wonders. Also because of the defense and the 3-point shooting, he would have been a better match than Jimmy Butler, just for the makeup of the 76ers. But Jimmy's a big, big upgrade for this team, just from a leadership standpoint. I think they'll let him in. I don't think they're going to be in this, and I know you're saying that the leadership is questionable because of the way he attacked at practice, but he was forcing his way out. He's a gritty dude on a losing team. How many times do you see guys with that type A personality getting to the point in their career where they're just about to hit, their peak, right? And sometimes they feel like they're going to make something happen. And, if we're going to use a Kawhi comparison, nothing Butler did even comes close to the ridiculousness of Kawhi Leonard's force out of a good team. Not even a bad team, not a bad team, a good team. And now we're talking about practice. We're talking about practice, and Jimmy Butler is going bananas on Karl Anthony Towns. He's going bananas on everybody. It's an elite level player when he wants to be. And I think the reason he forced his way out is because he wanted to be. What's really bizarre about it is our old buddy who we used to call Thibodeau, that we now call Thibodeau, was like totally boys with Butler, right? He went after Butler because of the time in Chicago and so I kind of feel like the one thing that stings me, and it doesn't really sting me that bad, but I feel like Butler kind of did Thibodeau wrong and left him with peanuts in the lap on that deal. I mean, that really sucks for Tom. And I bet Tom's a little bit on a short leash now.
Oh yeah. I think, there was some, I can't remember if it was Woj or who had said it, but somebody had said that he was, that Glenn Taylor was considering firing him and Layden last summer. So no, I agree with you. I think he really did do, Tibbs wrong. It sticks, but it's also,
always going to be Thibodeau.
But he pushed
Tibbs just doesn't work.
I know it's not the same, but he pushed himself out of Chicago again, another losing situation. But yeah, he didn't mesh with the kids. He didn't take Karl Anthony Towns under his wing and Wiggins under his wing and lead him. So maybe Embiid and Simmons are different players. Maybe they have a better work ethic. Maybe there's, a situation where he will be able to lead that team, but it felt like those two guys felt like they were already onto something. Are they going to be able to do what the Celtics young kids now are being asked to do and trying to subvert some of those tendencies to be the leader and let the older guy kind of take over? I think that there's some old guard, new guard stuff that they're going to have to work out as well. It may be not as pronounced because it's only one guy, but
now the issue is the depth on that team. The depth on Philly is why that resolves itself. I mean, they've got to pull guys off the bench. They've got to leave Jimmy out there to lead a second unit sometimes, which is probably what will happen. He'll probably be kind of that guy who sticks around. He'll start and he'll last the longest through substitutions. And then, they'll kind of work it in reverse in the second half and leave him out there towards the end, and bring him in at that late, he'll get the early sub in the third quarter and kind of hang around. But that's exactly what they want him. They want him to just take over against lesser talent and go at the rim. And then the rest of the time he can kind of shoot from the outside. So, and try to work that angle a little bit with the other guys, because Embiid can shoot threes. And so can Redick, so, I see a little bit of some ability there. It's really Simmons playmaking that could put this all together. It puts a lot of pressure on him, I think, because of, like you said, the clogging.
The shooting. That's the killer. I mean, that's the thing that when they play Boston, that they're just not going to be able to get past. Maybe, and I think
Boston's got to get past it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the problem here too.
Right. I mean, we're saying all these things in the idea that Boston's going to figure it out. I mean, right now, the way Boston's playing, they're going to struggle to even make the playoffs. So I think when I look at Philly and I say where this is going to go, I think Philly will figure it out, but I don't know that they're going to be able to reach that pinnacle, because I think Simmons really, until he will shoot a three and stops being so cowardly, then they're gonna have a hard time getting into the further reaches of the NBA playoffs, the conference finals, the NBA finals. He's got to do that. And to that point, Embiid's got to be a little bit more productive and efficient with the ball. No, stop the turnovers and, take better, shoot that three at a higher percentage. Right now, he's not shooting that three at a percentage better than Aaron Baines. That's got to be different if he's going to make that part of his repertoire.
So funny you call him cowardly. All I could think of is the Wizard of Oz, and I just want to Photoshop the starting five.
Because of all the wonderful things he does.
So is Embiid the Tin Man? Is Embiid the Tin Man? Right?
He would be the Tin Man, absolutely.
Redick's Toto?
Yeah. And Jimmy Butler's the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a brain. No, that's not nice.
Dude.
He's fine. That's fine.
All right. We're going to wrap this baby up by talking about the 3 games that are coming up. Put them up. right now the Celtics represent the lollipop kids or guild. So there you go.
Yes.
All right. 3 games, Bulls. And then that's Wednesday, one night off, a home and home or a home, 2 homes back to back against Raptors and Jazz. So the Bulls feels good, right? That Wednesday game, that feels good. Well, whatever, dude. They barely beat Phoenix.
I know.
So, I mean, come on. But that one feels pretty good. And then maybe a little bit of vengeance on the mind for the Jazz game. I don't think they have a shot against the Raptors. So I'm going to, as much as I thought 2-2 and a road trip to gel was going to pay off last week, this could easily be an 0-3 week if the Bulls snuck up on them. 1-2 is probably on the higher side of reality, but I just gotta think that something's going on in this locker room, that somebody is going to make a statement after that road trip. You know, if it didn't happen on the road trip, it's gotta happen at home in the locker room. It just does, or in practice, somebody, they're 7-6. Somebody in that locker room has to have the pride to not put up with this anymore and to make the statement. And it's not going to be Horford, not because he's gassed. It's just not his style, right? So somebody else, and maybe it's got to be Marcus Smart. Maybe he needs to punch a hole in the wall. I mean, who knows what he's got to do.
He was pretty vocal. He was pretty vocal in the post game, as was Kyrie.
Yep.
Both of them were
2-1. That's why they should be starting side by side. That's it right there. All right. The two of them, put up or shut up now. They've talked. They got to back it up. Put them side by side and let them back it up.
Okay.
Kyrie likes to work off ball anyway, right? So
He does. Yeah.
Until he's going to ISO and set up on the other side, right? On the weak side. So Bulls, Raptors, Jazz, I'm going 2-1. I just feel like, you know, they've got to be on the higher end. Otherwise, if they go 1-2, they're going to be a 500 ball club when you and I talk next time. They're pretty damn close now. And if they go 0-3, God forbid it won't happen. But if they do, they'll be an under 500 club. And they've had some struggles in the past. And to start out the season, nothing like this. And this has the least amount of excuses for it.
That's true. So I agree with you. I think the Bulls game is that better be a win, right? I mean, after what we went through, it better be a win. But here's what I'm going to say. So all last year, you used to.
Oh, here we go with the 3-0. I can see this a mile away. I can see it a mile away.
Oh, he's always so optimistic. Oh, you always say they're always going to do well this week. And, you know, last week, I thought I was being overly pessimistic. I'm like, well, you know, things are starting to turn around. And before the Indiana game, they started to look better, and they didn't. But we called it accurately. So here's the thing, right? The Jazz game, which I agree with you is probably the easiest of the 2 back-to-back games. I think there's some bad blood about how that game went down. I think the Jazz played well. I think Boston had a chance there at the end, but I think that there's a real desire to kind of give it back to them, you know, and the ability to kind of play with them so soon after having lost up in Utah. I think that's motivation for them. I'd say the same with the Raptors game. They went up there to Toronto about 3 weeks ago, and close all the way through, and then got their doors blown off when, you know, Toronto went supernova.
They had like a total extra gear all up in their business.
Yeah, but you know,
it felt like they were toying with them.
No, they were making wild shots. I don't think they were toying with it. Boston was in the lead most of the first half. And then the third quarter, they kind of fell back a little bit, but it was a 2-point, 3-point.
That happens all the time. They're either posting a huge slump in the first quarter, or they're jumping out to a big lead, and then they take a big turd all over the rest of the game.
So Justin's pretty optimistic about the season. But listen, Celtics have a great record against Toronto in Boston. Always have. Home and home. For whatever reason, Boston plays Toronto well at home. This is a different Toronto team. But it's not going to be a different result. 3-0, baby. We're
who can see that coming?
Baby. Let's go. Let's go, Celtics. Let's go.
God, dude, this is one of those moments where the fan in you is coming out because you're actually trying to will this through like psychology.
Listen, It's time, man.
Dude.
It's time for them. Listen, it's been a month. The season has been in. Hayward is a month away from playing like himself. Brad's going to make some changes until Christmas. And then after the first of the year, they're going rolling. This team is going to win their 63 wins, just like I called it the start of the season. I don't care how bad they're playing now.
All I could think was my 60-win season.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Mark it down.
60-win season is in major jeopardy, dude. I love it.
Nope.
I absolutely love it. Good for you. But that is definitely going to do it for the broadcast.
Bring it. Bring it.
The broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CSL_Justin and at CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in. Remember that you can help support the show by subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you give us a rating and a review because your feedback is important to the show. And for staff writer Samuel Elias, does he even work for CLNS Media anymore? I might have to update that. Staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and my co-host John Duke. Nick Gelso does. Yep, I think
he does. Nick sounds familiar.
What about Justin Poulin? I don't know. Is he still here?
Not familiar.
Nobody listens to this part of the show anyway.
Who cares? They already turned off. They already turned it on.
Totally tuned out.
By Sam Vecini.
If you listen to this, I want a tweet. We need to see a tweet to know that somebody actually stuck it around this long.
That's right. Listen in. Come on, folks. CLNS Media. That's what's up. Let's go.
And for my co-host, John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Green Colored Glasses Live.
Celtics Stuff Live.